So guess what? You don't have to follow laws you think are unconstitutional. Or is that maybe only a privilege afforded to the left-wing puppet sheriff of King County? Let's explore. Welcome to the Jason Rant Show, presented by None Better Tax Resolution. Imagine living in a society where laws are optional, where you can pick and choose which ones to follow based on personal preference. Sounds pretty chaotic, right? Well, that's the kind of world King County Sheriff Patty Cole-Tyndall is advocating. The top law enforcement officer in King County is implying that obedience to the law is a matter of personal choice. Now, of course, she only believes this privilege should apply to her and her boss, King County Executive Dow Constantine. You see, the city of Burien passed an ordinance banning encampments near populations that are vulnerable, senior centers, schools, parks. But Sheriff Cole-Tyndall and Executive Constantine, they oppose sweeps for ideological reasons. Frankly, it's why King County homelessness has actually worsened under their leadership. So they simply refused to enforce the ordinance. And they said they wouldn't until a judge weighed in on the constitutionality of it. Between all of that, the U.S. Supreme Court weighed in. They made it pretty clear. Cities can enact their own homelessness policy. It made it crystal clear that Burien's ordinance is, in fact, constitutional. Still, the puppet sheriff and her boss said that they would ignore the Supreme Court ruling and wait for the federal judge to weigh in. Okay, well, the federal judge just weighed in. In fact, he tossed the legal challenge, handing a huge victory to the city of Burien. But Cole-Tyndall still won't enforce the ordinance because the judge didn't rule on the constitutionality. He simply tossed it over her standing. Now, the legal argument for standing was comically silly. Cole-Tyndall claimed that because she believes the ordinance is unconstitutional, again, simply a belief, enforcing it could result in her losing her certification to work as a police officer. It was a very amusing twist on the so-called constitutional sheriff's movement. Remember when they said that they would refuse to enforce gun laws that they deemed unconstitutional? Now, progressives at the time were quick to label those sheriffs as dangerous. And they rightly pointed out that law enforcement officials, they don't get to decide what's constitutional. But in this case, Burien officials, I think that they were played by a disingenuous and deceitful Constantine puppet, backed by a legal team that almost certainly knew that they would lose this case, only to then turn around and claim that their constitutional concerns remain unresolved. I think this was intended to stretch this fight out even longer, all while the taxpayer paid for it. Now, they think this gives them the right to continue to ignore the ordinance. But what about us? If you or I decide to reject an anti-gun law as unconstitutional, we would still be expected to follow that law until a court ruled otherwise. Now, if we ignored it, you can bet it would be Cole-Tyndall ordering our arrest. But if she really wants to arrest a criminal, she should probably look in a mirror. I sat down with our local tax expert and advocate, Greg Nunn from None Better Tax Resolution. Tell me a little bit about the Fresh Start program, because again, based on how it's promoted, it seems really, really simple.
This Fresh Start program and that phrase has been around for many, many, many years now. But it's a great marketing tool to say, hey, fresh start. And in a way, for those that qualify, it is. What it essentially is an offer in compromise. And to get that, there's two main criteria a person must qualify for. One, they must have limited or no equity in assets. So generally, anyone in the Puget Sound region that owns a home and has for several years, they're going to have a lot of equity. They won't qualify. And the other is an income level. And that all depends upon your family size about how much income that could be. But both of those standards need to be met to qualify. Most people do not.
If you're having trouble with the IRS, then call Greg Nunn of None Better Tax Resolution. From stress to success with IRS Solutions. 425-947-1967 or Google NUNN, None Better Tax Resolution. Did you like that commentary? Make sure you subscribe to the podcast of The Jason Rant Show. Get it at ktth.com or wherever it is you download your podcasts.